Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees and here are today's top stories. In what's been called a historic moment, the UK Parliament declares that the Chinese Communist Party is committing genocide against the Uyghurs ethnic group. 39 former post office workers wrongly convicted for theft finally get their names cleared. And Russia says it has begun withdrawing troops from Crimea and the Ukrainian border. The UK Parliament passes an unopposed motion that declares the Chinese Communist Party is committing genocide against Uyghurs in Xinjiang. The UK follows the footsteps of the United States, Canada and the Netherlands in condemning Beijing's human rights abuses. NTD's Jane Worrell reports from London.
In what's been called a historic moment, the UK House of Commons voted to declare that a genocide is taking place against Uyghurs in Xinjiang.
As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
The vote doesn't compel the UK government to act, but it does put further pressure on Boris Johnson to take a harder stance over human rights violations in China. The motion was put forward by Nusrat Ghani. She's one of the 5 MPs sanctioned by China for being outspoken about abuses against Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang.
I am one of the 5 MPs sanctioned by the Chinese Communist Party. These sanctions were an attempt to silence and intimidate us, to prevent us from raising the growing evidence of the abuse faced by the Uyghur.
Will my honourable friend give way on that point?
Oh, indeed.
Does my honourable friend not agree with me that when a national government sanctions one member of Parliament in this place, that government, that national government, is actually sanctioning all members of Parliament in this place, and it is incumbent on all of us, all 650 of us, to stand as one at this moment?
My honourable friend could not have put it more perfectly. Sanctioning of 5 MPs for raising human rights abuses, I believe, was sanctioning this House and asking it to stop raising human rights abuses in Xinjiang, and the whole House needs to act as one. But as I mentioned, the fact that we're here today and having this debate shows that the sanctions just haven't worked.
She said the 5 criteria for committing genocide have been met. An estimated 1 million people are believed to be detained in camps in Xinjiang. There are reports of rape, mass sterilisation and torture, which Beijing has denied. A spokesperson for the Chinese embassy condemned the passing of the motion, saying in a statement that it grossly interferes in China's internal affairs. Minutes before the debate, MPs including former Conservative leader Ian Duncan-Smith, who's also sanctioned by China, joined protesters at Parliament Square. The Asia Minister Nigel Adams described the violations faced by Uyghurs and other minorities as truly harrowing, but he again said the UK government policy for ruling a genocide is a matter for a competent court. This motion, however, had no opposition. Asked by Sir Ian Duncan-Smith if he'll be giving evidence to the Uyghur Tribunal, which is led by human rights barrister Sir Geoffrey Nice, he said that he's had a constructive dialogue with Sir Geoffrey and that will continue. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
Justice has arrived for 39 former post office workers who were wrongly convicted based on errors in the post office's accounting system. In one of the UK's most widespread miscarriages of justice, the former postmasters finally got their convictions quashed.
39 former post office workers who were wrongly convicted have had their names cleared by the Court of Appeal. They were convicted and even jailed for theft, fraud and false accounting because of the Post Office's defective Horizon accounting system. Judges say the Post Office knew that there were serious issues about the reliability of Horizon and had a clear duty to investigate the system's defects. The judge also said the Post Office consistently asserted that Horizon was robust and reliable and effectively steamrolled over any sub-postmaster who sought to challenge its accuracy. The former post office workers told the court their lives were irreparably ruined as they lost their jobs, homes and marriages after they were prosecuted. Former postmaster Harjinder Bhutoy says the conviction destroyed his life for 14 years.
It's not been nice. I'm just so happy this has happened. Somebody needs to be held accountable for this.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson welcomes the court's decision and says lessons should be learnt to ensure this never happens again. The former sub-postmasters are calling for a public inquiry into the scandal. Post Office Chief Executive Nick Reed has said there must be compensation that reflects what has happened.
This year is the second year that GCSE and A-level exams are cancelled because of the pandemic. But a survey suggests the majority of schools will base their predicted grades on tests.
A survey by the Association of School and College Leaders shows 85% of secondary school heads say they will use a combination of exam-style papers and non-exam evidence to predict grades. Among them, 53% say more emphasis will be placed on the papers, and 26% say equal weighting will be given to papers and non-exam evidence. Another 6% say greater emphasis will be placed on non-exam evidence. Only 6% of head teachers say students' grades will be based solely on non-exam evidence. 7% of heads say grades will be based solely on exam-style papers sat in exam-style conditions. For the school leaders who will use both papers and non-exam evidence, they say they feel the exam board papers provide reliable evidence based on pupils' own work. The General Secretary of the Association, Jeff Barton, says, "There is no one-size-fits-all model out there, and nobody thinks that any of this is ideal." This year, GCSE and A-level exams were cancelled, and the Department for Education confirmed that teachers will decide the grades. Teachers can draw on a range of evidence when determining pupils' grades, including mock exams, coursework and in-class assessments, using questions provided by exam boards. The survey received responses from over 500 school and college head teachers in England. Among them, about 400 were from state schools and nearly 100 were from independent schools.
The UK cybersecurity chief warns that China is posing a serious threat to the UK's national security. He said the UK must urgently act to ensure that the regime does not dominate the key technologies of the 21st century.
The West is facing a moment of reckoning as China and Russia increase their malign activities in cyberspace. That's GCHQ's director Jeremy Fleming's key message in a virtual speech to Imperial College on Friday. He said the UK is a global cyber power, but its status cannot be taken for granted. Fleming said significant technology leadership is moving east. While Russia remains the biggest immediate threat to the West, China poses a much more systemic challenge. Britain's cybersecurity chief said, "The concern is that China's size and technological weight means that it has the potential to control the global operating system." To respond to the challenge, he said, the UK will have to develop sovereign technologies in areas such as quantum to protect sensitive information and capabilities.
Russia said on Friday it had begun returning troops back to base from Crimea and from the area near the border with Ukraine. It could mean an end to the build-up of tens of thousands of soldiers that had alarmed Ukraine and the West.
Russia's defense ministry said on Friday it had begun returning troops from the Crimean Peninsula and near the Ukraine border to their permanent bases. Video footage released by Russia shows military vehicles being boarded onto landing ships and trains, and servicemen marching onto a military aircraft. This comes after weeks of tensions with the West over its buildup of troops near Ukraine. NATO said it's the largest since 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea. The buildup had raised concerns in Kiev and the West about the risk of war. Russia said it had now completed a snap inspection of military drills. Ukraine welcomes the troop drawdown but is cautious. Its foreign minister says, "We need to remember that this step would not put an end neither to the current escalation nor to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia in general." And Washington says it's waiting to see what actions follow Moscow's announcement. On Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he was ready to host the Ukrainian leader for talks in Moscow at any time. He said Ukraine had been taking steps to destroy relations between the countries, but he's willing to restore them. It came 2 days after President Volodymyr Zelensky suggested meeting Putin in eastern Ukraine to end the conflict. Zelensky also said Ukraine is ready to defend itself till the end. Russian-backed separatists have been fighting Ukrainian troops in the region since 2014.
Alexei Navalny today said he will start to gradually end his hunger strike. The jailed Russian opposition politician began the fast to get the medical care he demanded. He said in an Instagram post on Friday that he still demands to be seen by a doctor of his own choosing, and that he was losing feeling in parts of his legs and arms, but that he had now been seen twice by civilian doctors and undergone tests. His failing health after 3 weeks of hunger strike triggered a Western diplomatic offensive, and thousands took to the streets across Russia in his support. And in other news, adverts for alcohol commonly appeal to young people who are under the legal drinking age. That's a finding of a new study.
In a study by the Institute of Alcohol Studies, or IAS, adolescents were shown 3 alcohol adverts. Then their reactions to each video were measured. The study surveyed more than 2,500 people aged 11 to 17. 1,500 of the adolescents had never drunk alcohol before, but after a positive reaction to the adverts, they were more susceptible to drink in the next year. And 900 of the young people were current drinkers. For those who had positive reactions to 2 of the 3 adverts, they are more likely to become higher-risk drinkers. Head of Research at the IAS, Sadie Boniface, says there is strong evidence that the current UK alcohol marketing regulations are inadequate in protecting young people. The IAS is calling for tighter alcohol advertising legislation.
Still to come, Jaguar Land Rover is halting its production at 2 of its UK plants. Find out more about that when we return.